We are with Rick Alloway, journalism professor, broadcast journalism professor here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln this morning, and just kind of a follow-up to the second presidential debate last night. Rick, a lot of commentary today. What is your take at this point? You've watched, you've listened to, you've read about a lot of presidential debates in the course of your lifetime. How do you reflect on this debate?
Well, it was, and I did not get to, just full disclosure, I did not get to watch it in real time, but certainly have done a lot of reading about it after the fact and trying to pick the brains of people whose opinions I respect. And it was another footnote in what has been the most bizarre presidential campaign that I can ever remember. I can't recall a time when this close to the election we have had this many major upheavals going on within a party, both parties, but particularly within the Republican right, where you have folks seriously considering what are the opportunities we might have to replace our candidate within 1 month of the election. There were huddles. I was hearing about this as late as yesterday afternoon. So I was expecting fireworks last night. They obviously came. I think the town hall meeting sort of format aided in that opportunity. But the fact that there was no handshake ahead of time, as I read, seems very strange to me, and just indicative of the kind of fire that was bound to come later that night. I did think that one of the interesting questions toward the end was when a question from the audience asked the two of them if they could say something nice about each other. That was a great question because it's something that's been sorely lacking in this contest, is any sort of civility between the two lead candidates. And they both struggled a little bit, but I thought they both gave good answers on that one. But you expected the fireworks about Donald Trump's recently released comments to come out. They did. You expected commentary about Secretary Clinton being an enabler of her husband's own behavior earlier to come out, and they did. But I thought there were some fiery answers, some good confrontation. I wish we could actually have a debate at some point, though, where the two of them just get to talk to each other rather than having it constantly need to be moderated and questions coming from all sides, because it really isn't a true debate in the sense of the word.
True, yeah, and none of these presidential debates have really ever been that way.
Nope.
There's just not enough time to break it down, and what we oftentimes get is a question is asked, and then the candidates give their answer that supports their position, which doesn't necessarily even connect to the question.
No, and I do wish the moderators would call them on that a little more last night. For instance, there was one where the issue was about the Supreme Court and what would happen with whomever becomes president having the opportunity to nominate judges for a Supreme Court. And Mr. Trump went off on an entire tirade about the Second Amendment and how it was being degraded. And I really expected one of the moderators to jump in and say, but please answer the question I asked. And they didn't do that. So I think I was disappointed in the moderators again last night.
Do you think presidential debates, even in this format, serve a constructive purpose in America?
I think they do, because for one thing, it's all we have along that line. It's the only time the two candidates are going to appear on the same stage. And so they do, even as structured as they are, they do have an opportunity for some give and take and some rebuttal back and forth. And so I do think you see how they respond to those kinds of circumstances without lots and lots and lots of well, they do have prep time, but I mean, there is still some off-the-cuff response back and forth on questions. And there are some policy issues that do get discussed. But so in light of saying, would we be better off without doing anything? No. I mean, I'm glad we have these. And I'm glad they're slightly different formats, but I do think that there needs to be more holding accountable the candidates to what it is that they say and trying to keep them focused on, as you suggest, answering the question that was asked, not answering the question they want to answer.
Certainly, the American public is engaged in these debates, the highest ratings for the two debates we've had in the history of American broadcasting. Last question. What do you expect in a third presidential debate?
I think great ratings once again, but I wonder if in some cases people come to these expecting the fight to break out at the hockey game. You know, if they really expect to see or to hear serious debate on issues, or if they're just waiting to see if one or the other of the candidates loses his or her cool or their heads explode or what might happen there. And I think what's driving part of the ratings here is that we have in this particular dynamic a much more a sense of much more danger, much more potential for a big soundbite, a big visual moment, and I don't know that people are really coming to listen to their thoughts about trans-Pacific trade or things along that line. I think they're waiting to see if whether the other of them actually loses their cool live on TV.
All right. Rick Alloway, broadcast professor here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, College of Journalism and Mass Communications. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Brian.
Great. Excellent. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Yeah.